Oh, very good. Well, I'll go ahead and proceed then with the introduction of our guest speaker today. My name is Terry Rommel. I'm the Information Services Manager for Rmls and been around for a long time. So I know some of you probably in the class today. Thanks for jumping in today. We're really fortunate to have created a relationship with a gentleman by the name of Scott Hamling. He happens to be the presenter for today's class, and Scott and I met a few years back. He was working for Cherry Creek Mortgage and doing a bunch of really good trainings all over the place. And one of his sales guys sort of cornered me and said, "Hey, you guys interested? I know you do lots of education. I think you should really consider using Scott because his content is compelling. His presentation style is very engaging, and he does a great job." So we said, what the heck, we'll give it a try, and the rest is history. And 14 months after closing down for COVID, here we are today with Scott Hamling in the house again, in the virtual house. So let me read you a little bit about Scott, and then I'll turn this over to him, and we can get rolling with the program today. Scott's widely considered to be a leader in the real estate industry. In his long career, Scott has worked as a real estate appraiser, Vice President of Development for Cherry Creek Mortgage, and currently serves as a senior loan originator at Move Up Mortgage, which he founded in 2020. Scott's been invited to speak at real estate companies in over 30 states, as well as at real estate conferences around the country, the RMLS Trade Fair being one of them. Scott's presentations are meant to help real estate agents understand the importance of the appraisal process. He provides agents with the tools necessary to get the highest appraisal value for their properties. Scott currently coaches real estate agents not only in Colorado, where he lives, but across the country. And it's through his classes and coaching that Scott receives the majority of his lending business from his real estate agent referral partners. Scott is a true Colorado native and lives in the same neighborhood in Southeast Denver that he grew up in. That's pretty cool. When he's not working, he enjoys all that Colorado has to offer. He's an avid skier, a hiker, an accomplished equestrian, and most importantly, a husband and father to 3 daughters. I'm not sure what more I could say about Mr. Hamling. Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you. Have a great class today.
For those of you who are just joining, we're going to restart this. So I'm not going to go through it all again, but my name's Scott Hamling. I'm with a company called Move Up Mortgage. I'm based here in Denver. I was prior with a company called Cherry Creek Mortgage. They are my parent company. And the class that we're going to go through today is called Taking Back Control of the Appraisal Process. It is meant to help a real estate agent with tools and with knowledge to help you get your house to appraise to its highest value. The way the class is going to work is we're going to start with a little bit of history. How did we get to where we are? We're then going to discuss the 1004MC and all of its uses. And I'm going to give you screenshots directly from your MLS system that will show you how to pull up a 1004MC and how to use it. I'm going to give you a list of everything that should be included in an appraisal package of information, as well as do a quick little sketch on how to provide that information to the appraiser. And then we're going to wrap up today's class talking about the ramifications of a governmental program called the Uniform Collateral Data Portal and Collateral Underwriter. It's because of this program that I believe more than, I'd say probably 30% of the appraisals right now are coming in below sales price. I know we all are in a crazy market, but there are a lot of appraisals coming in below sales price. So it's going to be important for you to know about this program so that will help you to get the information to the appraiser that will hopefully get your house to appraise. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the scary share screen part, and it worked the first time. All of you saw that it worked, and I'm just going to pray that it works again. Let's see. Share. All right, is it working? But I'm going the wrong way in my thing.
Successful again.
Successful again. All right. Okay, so as I started off a little bit ago, the importance of engaging millennials. The importance of engaging millennials is about our own survival as an industry. I'm going to throw it right out there. Millennials don't understand what we do. They don't understand what a real estate agent does. They don't understand what a loan officer does. They don't understand our jobs. They think that you click a button and buy a house, and they click a button and you get a mortgage. And you and I both know that it takes a lot more to get a real estate transaction across the finish line than clicking buttons. So we need to be reaching out to the people in their late 20s, early 30s, these first-time home buyers, explaining our value proposition. All of you should have a very strong value proposition. Here's mine. When I get a call from a buyer and that buyer says something flippant like, no, there's a whole bunch of people that do your job. Why should I work with you? I get that question all the time. And I'm very quick to be able to say, well, this is why you should work with me. I'm a great communicator. I have a fantastic team. We close our loans on time. Your earnest money is not at risk. And I used to be an appraiser. And you're only putting 5% down, which means you're going to have mortgage insurance until you get to a 20% equity position. That mortgage insurance might be $100, $200, $300 a month. I can help you get rid of that mortgage insurance because in a year or so, we're going to see some strong appreciation. You're going to pay down your principal. And then you're going to reach out to me and I'll pull some comps and see if we're at a 20% equity position. And if we are, I'll put together an appraisal package for you. I'll bring it over to your house. I'll drop it off. You'll request from the servicer that your mortgage insurance be removed. And they're going to send out an appraiser. You hand them that package of information. We'll get your house to appraise. So those are just some of the reasons why you should use me as your loan officer. I think that sets me apart. I think it shows my value. All of you should know exactly what your value is and why somebody should use you for the purchase of real estate. If you look back 33 years ago from right now, and you look at the US birth rate, do you know what you're going to see? You're going to see it start to increase year over year significantly for the next 7 to 10 years. And then you know what it does? It doesn't fall, it just levels out, which means, and what the reason I'm saying to go back 33 years is the typical buyer right now, when they purchase their first home, is 33 years old. So if you go back historically, you're going to see that the number of buyers coming into this market is just going to getting more and more and more every year. For anyone who's out there saying there's a housing bubble, I'm here to say there is not. There is a great demand for housing. And it's just a very unique time because interest rates is still historically low. And it's allowing a lot of people that maybe are just on the fence to actually be able to purchase a property. But for any of you that think all of a sudden the buyers are going to disappear, they're not. They're going to keep coming for years to come. And because of the high cost of building and the high cost of construction, it's not going to get easier because the builders aren't building enough. All the builders I know are sitting on the sidelines, opening up a few a week, maybe a few a month, because they're waiting for supply chains to open up so lumber prices come down. A good friend of mine her sister is out looking at properties at new construction. And you know what she was told by the in-office person? She was told that they're not even giving you your sales price until they're at framing stage, which is 8 to 10 months away from now. The houses that they're offering right now could go up to over $100,000 in sales price. And they're not even going to tell you what that is because they're waiting to see what happens with their costs for lumber and for all of the people to build the houses, the labor. So it's going to be tough out there for a long time. We got to explain what we do. All right, let's get back into this. Little history. In 2009, I was a happy little appraiser. I had started appraising in 1982 because in 1982, I graduated from high school. My dad is an appraiser and I started applying to schools that year. And I got into a college called Pepperdine. And I got in, which was kind of surprising, but I got in. And when I got that offer, that acceptance letter, I went to my parents and I said, wow, got into this school. And I sure would love to go there. And I handed my parents this brochure for Pepperdine. My dad looked at it, my mom looked at it, and they said, well, why do you want to go to school here? And I said, look at these pictures. Are you kidding me? This place is beautiful. I had never seen the ocean before. My parents we didn't travel. We weren't wealthy. Times were tough. And I'd never seen the ocean before. And here's the school in Malibu looking out over the Pacific. And it looked like heaven on earth to me. I said, Dad, this looks just like that. I said, Dad, this looks like heaven, doesn't it? Then Dad saw how much heaven cost. And he said, if you want to go to school there, you got to get to work. So I spent that summer learning the art of appraising. And I would fly home once a month on a Thursday. Dad would have 5 appraisals scheduled for me on Friday. I'd spend all day Friday measuring houses. All day Saturday and Sunday, I used a thing that many of you might remember, some of you not. It was called a typewriter. And I type up this appraisal, and I take the pictures with double-sided tape, and I put them on the appraisal on the picture forms. And then I'd fly back to school on Sunday night, and Dad would deliver them for me on Monday. And that's how I paid for college. So by the time I graduated from college, I built this great company called Hamling Appraisal Services. And it was considered by many to be the preeminent appraisal company in the city of Denver. Because I was born and raised here, I knew the city. In 2009, the government came out with the Home Valuation Code of Conduct out under Dodd-Frank, and it destroyed my company. It said that I was to blame for the Great Recession because I was in cahoots with the lenders and we were overappraising and we were doing all these bad things. And they killed my company. And what I became was the next person in the rotation. That's when the AMC model took over. And I just became the next person in the rotation. That's when I got out of lending because I got out of appraising because I no longer enjoyed it. I was just the next person. I couldn't go to mortgage companies and say, I'm a great appraiser, give me a shot. And so I said, it's time for me to make a change. It's very important that the Home Valuation Code of Conduct had a lot to say about what lenders can say to an appraiser, but it also Dodd-Frank has a lot to say about what a real estate agent can say to an appraiser. So I'm giving you 2 pages from Dodd-Frank. I'm giving you this page, and I'm giving you this page. If you ever get a call from an appraiser and they say, hey, this is Scott Hamling, I'm planning to schedule an appraisal with you on 765 Olive Street. That's my actual address here in Denver. 765 Olive Street, and was hoping to do that on Friday at 1 o'clock. And you say, great, I look forward to meeting you, Scott. Friday at 1 o'clock it is. And that appraiser says, you can't be there. That would be a violation of Dodd-Frank. I'll just take the lockbox code, please. I want you to have this piece of paper really handy. And this is what I want you to do first. This is how I'm going to coach you to respond. I'm first going to coach you to smile. Even on the phone, people can hear a smile. I want you to smile. I want you to say, oh, that's not true. I've got the Dodd-Frank rules right in front of me. And you know what? I'm not going to compensate, coerce, extort, collude, instruct, induce, bribe, or even intimidate you. I'm just going to give you a lot of great information. And you know what? Dodd-Frank says that I can, including the consideration of additional comparable properties to make or support an appraised value. I look forward to meeting you, Scott. As I said earlier, if you take one thing from today's class, it's to meet the appraiser at the property every single time. I cannot drive that point home enough. It's the single most important thing you can do to protect your transaction. And I'll get into all of that here in a minute. You have every right to be there. Make sure that you are there to provide the appraiser with as much information as you can. Again, you're not trying to compensate, coerce, extort, collude, instruct, induce, bribe, or intimidate anyone. You are just there to provide information. And as the listing agent, you should have more information about this property than anyone else on the planet. So you're there to help. I would normally say, are there any questions? But we'll get to those at the end of the class. Please remember to put your questions in chat. And if you want to stick around at the end of the class, we can also do Q&A because I love back and forth with all my classes. All right, so we're going to go to the next page. AMCs versus a local lender. It is the AMC model. It's good. And the AMC is an automated, what does AMC stand for? I can't remember. Appraisal Management Company. God, it's been a long time since I presented. Appraisal Management Company. And that's what most mortgage companies went to when Dodd-Frank came out, is they hired these appraisal management companies to send out appraisers and to manage that process for them. I can tell you it's a terrible, terrible way to do business. When I first went to work at Cherry Creek, one of the things that I was tasked with doing was helping them to develop their roster of appraisers, because I knew who all the good appraisers were. And the owner of my company said, they're sending appraisers from 2-3 hours away to appraise in certain markets, and all my appraisals are coming in low, and this is terrible. So Cherry Creek was one of the very first mortgage companies across the country, and there's Cherry Creek offices in Portland, and they're in Salem and Lake Oswego. And so reach out to them, but they have the best appraisers in the market on their roster. Everything is in full compliance with Dodd-Frank. It is critically important that you are working with a lender that has some sort of control over where their appraisers are coming from. Because the AMC model is whoever accepts the assignment first gets it. And whoever will do it for the cheapest amount of money gets it. I think it's a terrible business model. It doesn't assure great product. And the way that we have established our roster, Cherry Creek is an owner of my little shop. But so I could still use their roster. It is great that we have a roster of people that know the market and know where these houses are, and know how to appraise in these markets. Please remember that if you get a low FHA, it sticks with your property for 4 months. You get a low VA, sticks with your property for 6 months. Because of the Uniform Collateral Data Portal, I fully envision a time in our near future where every appraisal is going to start sticking with the property for a certain amount of time. So it's going to be critically important that you get as much value on that appraisal as you can. Okay? If you're writing down notes, please write down this, okay? Everyone grab your pen, grab a piece of paper. Please write, request a reconsideration of value. Request a reconsideration of value. Proper terminology in our world goes such a long way. And if you have an appraisal that comes in below your sales price and you're going to fight it, you're going to call the bank or the mortgage company, and you're going to say, may I please have your policies to request a reconsideration of value? This is code for I'm fighting this appraisal, okay? They're going to send out their policies, okay? They'll send you something that you're going to need to do. Here are the 3 steps to do a proper reconsideration of value request, okay? Step number 1 is I need you to go through that appraisal with a fine-tooth comb, and I need you to pick out every simple error, every little mistake. Maybe the address says 650 Niagara Street, but it should be 650 Niagara Way. Whatever little mistake you can find in an appraisal, and there's always going to be some, you're going to write that down in a list. This is a critical step to your success when you are doing a reconsideration of value, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get into the subconscious mind of that appraiser that they have made mistakes, okay? You're trying to get into their head that they have made mistakes, because what are you asking them to admit they did if they changed the value? You're asking them to admit that they made the largest mistake they could have. They're changing the value, okay? So step number 1, point out the mistake. Step number 2 is I need you to explain why any comp on that appraisal that does not support your sales price should not have been used. Another way of saying this is get rid of the bad comps, okay? Explain that, hey, the appraiser didn't state that this house backs to a very busy road, and therefore it shouldn't have been used because that truly affected the marketability of the product to such a point that the value was adversely affected, and there was no comment about it. You've got to explain why the comps that don't support your sales price should not have been used. So step number 2, get rid of your bad comps. Step number 3 is I need you to provide a minimum of minimum of three new sold comps that were not used in your original report and explain why these are better. So I need you to provide a minimum of 3 new sold comps that were not used in your original report and explain why these are better. Okay, step number 1, point out the mistakes. Step number 2, get rid of your bad comps. Step number 3, a minimum of 3 new sold comps, explaining why these should be used. Now, here's the reality, folks, okay? The reality is on the screen. You're gonna do all of this work. You're gonna fight like crazy. You're gonna put it's gonna take you all day to do this. It takes me typically around 2 to 3 hours to do a proper reconsideration of value, and I'm fast. So I'm gonna think it's gonna take you at least double that amount of time. And you're gonna do this so that you can say to your buyers and sellers, I am fighting for you, but here's the reality. Y'all have less than a 10% chance of getting that value raised via reconsideration of value request. So it's far better that you get your house to appraise upfront rather than do a reconsideration of value after the fact, because these are hard, these are tough. The Uniform Collateral Data Portal and Collateral Underwriter are locking down appraisals, and they're reluctant to change their appraised value. Now, I know in our market, we're all getting these crazy offers, right? Where people are removing the appraisal contingency. We've got appraisal gap coverage. We've got all these creative ways to get these buyers' offers accepted. Shoot, I have buyers that have written on 19, 20 plus houses. It's terrible out there. I get it. I feel your pain. And there's all these little things. Well, you know what? It makes me think of this song. It's from a long time ago, so many of you won't know it. And it's called 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. You sneak out the back, Jack. You make a new plan, Stan. You don't need to be coy, Roy. You just get yourself free. And I know 50 ways to kill a contract. If my buyer gets an appraisal back and all of a sudden it's $50,000 lower than even list price, and they're now having to write a big check, and the buyer's like, I didn't think it was going to be that much. You know what? There's going to be a way to get out of that contract. There always is. Some people are even just walking on their earnest money. How does that help? It doesn't. You want your deal to close. You don't want it to fall out of contract, because when it falls out of contract and you relist, what's the first thing everyone asks? Was it because of a low appraisal? What's going on? And all of a sudden your house, even in this market, could start to sit because people get nervous. So I'm going to hopefully help you with some tools that will help you to get your house to appraise up front rather than doing a reconsideration of value after the fact, because these things are tough. And this is why I can hardly wait for next year. Maybe I'll get to come out and do a class with you guys in person, 2 or 3 classes, because this is when I ask, are there any questions? And all these hands go up. So I promise I will get to your questions at the end. Thank you for putting them in the chat, or just wait until the end and then we can ask them in person, okay? All right, so we're gonna move on to the next slide. We're now gonna start talking about the 1004MC. The 1004MC is the backbone for every single thing that I do in real estate. It's how I help buyers when they're trying to figure out how high is too high to write an offer. It's the first thing that I pull when I'm helping an agent price a new listing or help them on a listing appointment that they're going to be going out on. It's how I come up with an appreciation rate. The 1004MC is the backbone for every single thing that I do in real estate. And what's super cool is that it is now available to you in your MLS system, which is so exciting. Terry's the best. Go Jeremy and Terry. Yay, we love you guys. Okay. So here are actual directions in your MLS system on how to pull up the 1004MC. So you're going to log into RMLS, and then you're going to go to Tools. And this is, I know it's kind of probably hard to see this on your little screen, but again, you're going to get all this. You're going to go to Tools, and you're going to choose Paragon. You're going to go into Paragon. All right. For those of you who haven't done it yet, it's super easy. I just did this I got help with some access, and I pulled these screenshots over on Friday. It took me less than 5 minutes to do this. So you go into Paragon. Now here are the things that I need. So let me explain what you're looking at first, and then we'll talk about the steps. So what I wanted to do was I have a good friend. Some of you might know him. His name is Sean McCluskey. If you ever run into Sean McCluskey, you have to give him a hug too and say that Scott told me to give you a hug. I miss Sean. He lives in Lake Oswego. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to figure out the appreciation rate for Lake Oswego. I'm probably saying it wrong. So if I am mispronouncing it, I'm sorry. So you get into this. When you first get in here under status, this is what I need you to choose. I need you to choose active and under contract. And I need you to choose sold. So active, under contract, and sold. Now under sold, you have to search back 1 year. And you in your system in Paragon, it's a calendar. So I need you to go back 1 year from the day that you are running this. Okay, this is really important. So you go back 1 year, and then I think I ran this on the 4th, I think it was the date. So it was from June 4th, 2020 to June 4th, 2021. I then put in property type as detached single family. I put in city as Lake Oswego, and then I've changed the close date. Okay, after you do that, it lists out all the comps. You guys have seen this a million times. You've done this a million times. Now up here, I hope you guys can see my cursor, my arrow. You choose right here where it says all. This grabs all of the information. I see a lot of people are asking questions, so we'll get to this, I promise. You choose this all button. You click all. That grabs all the data. Then you come over here to the right side, okay? You go down to specialty views. You click specialty views and you spool all the way down, and it's the very last specialty view you can choose, and it's called the Market Conditions Addendum. So again, when it lists them all out, start over here, you click all, you go over here to specialty views, you go down specialty views, and the very last thing you can choose is the Market Conditions Addendum, okay? You're gonna get this pop-up. Again, you choose the all listings button. So all you have to do is choose all listings, and then you click right here, the generate report. You do that, and you get this box of information. This box of information is known and called the 1004 MC. MC stands for Market Conditions Addendum. This box of information is everything. This is how I do everything, is based off of this. It used to be that the 1004 MC was required to be in every appraisal. It's no longer required, but it still is. This is how appraisers come up with adjustment rates. It's how they come up with appreciation rates. I actually offer a second class called How to Adjust Like an Appraiser, where we do a deep dive in the 1004 MC, and I teach you how to come up with an adjustment for like location, or an adjustment for view or bedrooms. I mean, everything you can use the 1004 MC to come up with, okay? So first I'm gonna teach you how to read the 1004 MC, and then I'm gonna teach you how to use it, okay? So how do you read the 1004 MC? Look up at your screen where my cursor's going back and forth. I hope you guys can see this arrow. It's so hard not being able to see anyone. All right, so this first column where my arrow is, this first column is the first half of last year. So this is the first 6 months of the year that we just lived through. This basically is first 6 months of terrible, terrible COVIDness. Maybe we started a little bit earlier, but this is close. The second column is the third quarter. And this last column is the quarter that we're just coming out of. Again, it says current to 3 months. So again, first half of the year, prior 7 to 12 months, third quarter, prior 4 to 6, most recent quarter, current to 3 months. Look at months of housing supply. There's one. This is a little hopeful though. I like this. Number of active listings has bumped up to 76. How about that? There's 76 listings of detached single family in Lake Oswego. Woo! Shoot, that's like nothing, but it gives us hope. It's better than 41, right? The next slide, months of housing supply, 1 month. Yeesh. We're seeing, it was 3/4 of a month, 0.75. So at least we have a month. Yay, yay. Anything less than 3 months is deemed to be a seller's market. Anything over 3 months is deemed to be a buyer's market. So we're still strong into a heavy seller's market. The next slide right here, this is something I want y'all to pay attention to. Median comparable sales price started at $835, up to $890, most recent $959. Yep, values are appreciating, and I'm going to teach you how to figure out that appreciation rate next. Median comparable sales days on market, down to 5. We're seeing some parts of town here in Denver be 1, 2, same with listing days on market. I do want you all to look at this number though. Median sale price as a percent of list price, 101%. We're seeing neighborhoods be 108, 109. I saw a neighborhood last week on an appraisal that came in, said the median sale price as a percent of list price is 113%. The typical house is selling for 13% over its list price. That line is going to be really helpful when you're sitting with that buyer that hasn't, you're only on your first or second offer and they're not really listening yet. And after you write 20 offers, you don't need any more help. You know how to write an offer pretty quick by now, right? Don't need any more help writing offers. You get them involved at the very beginning and you say, so, hey, I know you've probably heard this market is a little aggressive. I've got some data I want to share with you. We need to be able to write at least 1.5% over list price if we're even going to get in the game. So I want you to see that right off the beginning. And as we dive into neighborhoods, I'm going to shrink this down and we're going to go neighborhood specific and see how much higher those houses are selling for in that neighborhood. It helps when you show somebody data. What are you? You're more professional and they're more inclined to follow you down this path of, hey, all right, let's go buy. You want to buy a house? Let's go buy a house. Let's go buy a house. You got to be aggressive. Let's go buy this house. You're showing them data. It's helping them understand. It helps them understand where they need to start with that offer. So that bottom line is critical. Such an important piece. All right. So now we're going to go to figuring out the appreciation rate. I see a bunch of people writing stuff in the chat. Thank you very much for doing that. I can't see the questions. They're not popping up on my screen. I just see the chat opening, but it doesn't show me the questions. So I promise I will get to your questions at the end of the class, okay? So keep putting them in there, all right? But now I'm going to teach you how to do the appreciation rate. So I need you all to grab your phone, okay? So all of you grab your phone or your calculator, okay? So everyone grab your phone or your calculator. I'm giving everyone a little bit of time. Okay, so I've got my calculator. So to figure out the appreciation rate, I'm going to run through this 2 or 3 times because this is what you're going to use this tool the most for. Not going to lie, this is what you're going to use it the most for. And it's going to be critically important that you understand this piece. So I'm going to go through it 2 or 3 times. So to get the appreciation rate, look at my cursor. You're going to take the current to 3-month median sales price, $959,000. Everyone key in 959 on your calculator. Current 3-month median sales price. Minus the prior 7 to 12-month median sales price. So 959 minus 835. That's going to equal $124,000. Look at your screen. You should all have $124,000. Okay. When you have $124,000, you're going to hit divide. You're going to divide 124,000 by the prior 7 to 12-month median sales price of 835. I see a lot of questions getting pinged in here. You're going to divide it by 835. So 124 divided by 835. And that's going to equal 0.1485. 0.1485 is another way of saying this area has appreciated 15% over the past 12 months. The annual appreciation rate has been 15% over the last 12 months. Is this perfect? No, but this is how appraisers come up with their appreciation rates. So you might as well be doing it the same way the appraiser does, right? All right, so I'm going to go through the calculation again because I need for you all to be very comfortable with this. You can also watch the recording again. And if you have any questions, remember on the very last page of this, when we send it out, it has my contact information. Feel free to reach out. So again, how do you figure out the annual appreciation rate? You take the current to 3-month median sales price of $959 minus the prior 7 to 12-month median sales price of $835. That equals $124,000. You then hit divide, and you divide $124,000 by the medians, by the prior 7 to 12-month median sales price of $835, and you get 0.148, which is another way of saying 15% annual appreciation. So, as everyone's writing this down, I realize I've done this class so many times in person, and I know this is a lot of information coming at you quickly. Again, you can watch the recording, you can reach out to me, and I'm going to just pause for a second so you can write this down again one more time. Determine the annual appreciation. You take the current to 3-month median sales price of $959 minus the prior 7 to 12-month median sales price of $835. That equals $124,000. You then divide $124,000 by the prior 7 to 12-month median sales price of $835,000, and that equals 0.148, which is another way of saying the annual appreciation rate has been 15%. Okay. So now we're going to put this into, we're going to do a real life example of how you're going to use this. All right. You're getting ready to list this house for sale, this apple. You're getting ready to list this apple for sale. You have a model match down the street of the exact same apple that sold 12 months ago for $500,000. So I'm sorry, 10 months ago for $500,000. About where should you be writing where you should be listing your house today? So this model match sold 10 months ago for 500. Where should you be listing your house today? So we know that the annual appreciation rate is 15%. So you would take the sales price of the comp, $500,000 times the annual appreciation rate of 15% times 0.15. That equals $75,000. That's your annual appreciation, but it hasn't been 12 months, it's only been 10. So you divide the annual 75,000, you hit divide by 12 to get your monthly. 75,000 divided by 12 equals monthly appreciation is 6,250. Your house sold 10 months ago, multiply that times 10, period of time. That house is appreciated $62,500 from when it sold 10 months ago for 500. So you're getting ready to list your house here today. You're listing for around 562, probably at 565 because of the high appreciation. This is how the appraiser comes up with that adjustment though, for that time. So if they're using that comp that sold 10 months ago, if they did this properly on the comp section of the appraisal, on the grid section, where it has a close date, there should be a plus $62,500 next to that comp that sold 10 months ago for that appreciation rate. Do y'all see what I did? This is so important for you guys to master and figure out this appreciation rate, because there haven't been a ton of sales. There just aren't a lot of sales, period. There's not that many houses listed for sale, right? And we all know that the appraiser wants to use comps that are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months old. But guess what? Your best comp might be from 10 or 11 months ago. And you need to know what that house would be worth in today's dollars. And that's why you need to figure out this appreciation rate. So important. I'm going to give you guys a trick. Well, first I'm going to tell you a rule, okay? It's part of the trick, but I'm going to tell you the rule first. The rule states that if an appraiser on the front page of the appraisal marks that values are increasing, they can either mark values are increasing, stable, or declining. If they mark that values are increasing, they are required. Required is a strong word, but they are required to make an adjustment for date of sale on anything that sold more than 3 months ago. They're required to make an adjustment for date of sale on anything that sold more than 3 months ago. This is the first thing I look at when I'm doing a reconsideration of value. Did the appraiser mark on the first page of the appraisal that values were increasing? If they did, then I immediately flip over to the grid section and I see if there is a comp that sold more than 3 months ago. And if there is, and there is not a plus and an adjustment, in my reconsideration of value, I say to the appraiser, will you please make the proper time adjustment as you are required to do? And if you make that time adjustment according to the 1004MC that is in this appraisal, that adjustment would be at $6,250 a month, and you need to adjust for 5 months. And that's a $30,000+ adjustment. That might get you where you exactly need to be to cover that sales price. Here's the other part of that rule, okay? If values are stable to increasing, if the appraiser is marked the values are stable or increasing, it is perfectly acceptable to go back 12 months for your comparables. Perfectly acceptable. I don't know of too many markets in Oregon or Colorado that are not at least stable, if not all increasing. So it's perfectly acceptable to go back 12 months, okay? So open up your comp range, do the math, figure out that appreciation rate, provide that information to the appraiser. They're gonna be blown away if you are talking about the 1004MC, because the 1004MC is an appraiser's tool. They don't even think real estate agents know about it. And to be very honest, the only way that a real estate agent would most likely learn about the 1004MC is if they came to one of my classes somewhere across the country, because I've been talking about the importance of the 1004MC for a very long time, and I promise you it will change your business, okay? So again, we've talked about the appreciation rate. And again, if you have questions about this, put it in the chat. I'm sorry, I can't see the chat box right now, but I will once I stop sharing my screen. And
hey, Scott, I just wanted to actually add one question that came through that kind of directly relates to what you're talking about. Emily was asking if you could point to the regulations requiring adjustments for time.
Yes, so I can't right now, but I can get that for you, Jeremy, and I will work on getting that for you, okay? So
okay,
yeah,
perfect.
It's nothing that I have like shared in my computer or something like that, but I can get that rule for you, okay? Did that help?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, okay. All right, so we're now going to get off of the 1004MC, and we can come back to it if you guys want. And we're going to go into the list of everything that should be included in an appraisal package of information. So here's the list. The agents that I work with and that I help, we start to develop our appraisal package the minute that we get a listing, and we fine tune it throughout. This is not something that you do the night before you meet the appraiser. This is something that I want you to start to work on and formulate the very minute that you get a listing appointment, as soon as you get that listing. Okay, so the first thing you're going to include is a copy of the contract. Simple enough, okay? Oh, first thing, I have to back up. Back up. The next time you're at the grocery store, I want you to go down the pen aisle, and I want you to purchase 3 colors of Sharpie pens or markers. I want you to purchase a green marker. I want you to purchase a red marker. and I want you to purchase a bright colored marker, okay? First thing you're going to supply is a copy of the contract. This is a full and complete copy. Let's pretend that this is your contract. I want you to take your bright colored pen and I want you to write SP $400K. I want you to write the sales price right across the front of the contract, just like this. Okay? I do not want you to assume. Y'all know what assume means. Assume means to make an ass out of you and me. Do not assume that when you hand this contract to the appraiser, that they're going to read through all these pages and find that there is an addendum or amendment to the contract that changes the sales price from $390,000 to $400,000. I want you to write it across the front page of the contract just like this. We assume nothing, okay? Big bright colors. Number two, your listing brochure. It'll have all the bells and whistles in the house, pretty pictures. You're going to give that to the appraiser. Number three, a list of all property upgrades, completion dates, and costs. I want you to provide a list of anything that has been done to this house for the last 5 years. I want you to ask the seller to put it on the list. Anything that they've changed over or changed out in the last 5 years, I want it on the list. If you are dealing with somebody who flips property, I want you to tell that property flipper to keep a receipt for every single nail that they put in the house. Every single nail. And I want you to give a receipt for every single nail to that appraiser. If it's a normal circumstance and they have a receipt for how much the furnace replacement was, give them a receipt for the furnace. Provide all of that information in a nice list. You can also do estimated costs if you don't have those receipts to go off of. Number four is sketch of the property. If you are not sure how large the property is and county records appears to be incorrect, I want you to hire an appraiser to go out and measure that house. I am actually going out to help an agent measure a house tomorrow because the county records is obviously incorrect on the size of the house. So I'm going to go help her because I can't do it for her because that would be a RESPA violation, but I can help her. So we're going to go out tomorrow afternoon and measure out her new listing so she knows how big it is. It's worth the $100 or $150, especially if your county records are anything like Colorado's. Our county records are incorrect on the size of the house more than 80% of the time in the city of Denver. It's especially true on older houses. So if you think the house just seems larger, have an appraiser go out and measure it. In the MLS, all you do is you type in buyer to verify measurements are per appraisal. And then you just give them the sketch. Number five, county assessor records. Number six, you're going to talk about your listing history, how your house was on the market for 12 and a half minutes and you had 75 showings. And there were 5 fights in front of it. And then there were 32 offers, all above list price. Along with that listing history, you're going to provide a full copy of every other offer that you received. You are going to redact all of the personal information, but I want you to provide the full offers to the appraiser of any other offer that you received. Remember to redact the personal information. Number 7, you're going to talk about the 1004 MC, the appreciation rate. And number 8, you're going to talk about your comparables. And this is where the green and the red pens come in. So what is green universal for? Green is universal for good, go, money, and weed. Okay. I want you to take your green pen and I want you to put a star up in the corner, a green star up in the corner of all the comps you want the appraiser to use. This is a subconscious cue to the appraiser that this is a good comp and they should use it. Because green is good, go, money, and weed. Okay. So you put a green star up there. They've been getting stars on their homework since they were 3 years old. Okay. It's a subconscious cue, they can't help it. If it's a comp you do not want the appraiser to use, you're not going to hide it. You're not going to pretend it doesn't exist. You're going to bust out your red pen and you're going to put a red X across it just like this. And then you're going to explain why this is a bad comp. I need y'all to hear me when I say this. It's actually more important to get rid of your bad comps than it is to even provide your good ones. Okay, so y'all know how to talk about your good comps. Let's talk about your bad ones. Let's pretend that the house across the street just recently sold, and it sold for less money than it should have. And you call that listing agent up and you say, hey, just curious if there might have been something on the inside of that house. I didn't get a chance to go through it, but something on the inside of that house that might have adversely affected its sales price. And that listing agent said, yeah, I can tell you, there wasn't just one thing. There were about 33 too many cats living in that house. And you're going to say, thank you so much for letting me know that. And on this comp, you're going to write too many kitties. And you're going to write it just across this comp, just like this, that there were too many kitties living in that house. Now you've got your appraisal package all put together. Got all these 8 things all organized and ready to go. Next, we're going to meet the—
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
Quick question.
Hi,
What
Terry.
if you just don't include the bad comps?
No, you always include the bad comps, because you know why you do that. You got to get rid of them, because if you don't include the bad comps, guess who's going to find the bad comps? The appraiser's going to find them. And if you don't get rid of them, then the appraiser in their mind thinks you're just trying to hide something from them if you're just providing the good ones. So you got to provide the bad ones and explain why they should not be used. You're basically saying, I'm giving you everything I got. And I'm giving you the good and the bad. And this is why these should not be used. And like I said, it's actually more important to get rid of your bad comps than it is to even provide your good ones. So thank you for the question, Terry. All right, so now we're going to go to meeting the appraiser at the property. My agents and I came up with this idea many years ago that we call it the 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill is based off the idea that you can hold anyone's attention for a couple minutes if you smile, wave your hands around a little bit, and talk fast enough, even wearing a mask, okay? So I want you to get to this house about 30 minutes before the appraisers, get to your listing about 30 minutes before the appraiser's supposed to get there. I want you to open up the gates around the outside, because when they get there, they're going to measure around the outside first, and then they will come through and do a floor plan. So open up the gates. I want you to take the sweetest, kindest, nicest dog and put it away in a sweet and kind and nice place. I want you to get this house ready to be seen. This is your most important showing ever. You have one opportunity to have a positive effect on the appraiser's subconscious mind. If the appraiser is walking through this house and having to step over and around and dodge, and yeah, what is that? Yikes, what is in that bathroom? The subconscious mind of the appraiser is going to be pinging that this house is not well taken care of. So I want you to get there, get this house set up, get it ready to be seen. I want you to take this list of 8 things, and I want you to lay them out across a dining room table or across a countertop. And you're going to use this as your own little PowerPoint, just like I use this to keep me on track of where I'm supposed to be in my presentation. So you're going to lay these things out on a dining room table or across a countertop. And you're going to get ready for your 2-minute drill. And I'll act out a 2-minute drill for you. I'll show you kind of how it should go. But I want you to practice this. It's actually, I've done workshops on this, just the 2-minute drill, where we've practiced going through this so you're comfortable talking about this in front of an appraiser. Because the first few times that you do this, it's uncomfortable. And I can tell you that the #1 fear that a lot of people have is public speaking. And so speaking to somebody, it can be scary. I get that. My #1 fear is like costumed animal or people, like for me, the scariest place in the world is Disneyland. I know it's supposed to be the happiest place on the planet or something. I think it's terrifying. I don't think there's anything scarier than Goofy personally. All right, I got off my topic. So here goes a 2-minute drill. The appraiser is going to get there to the house.
Hey, Scott, before you start the 2-minute drill, really quick question. As you're preparing the house for like a showing,
Yes.
what about the condition of the house next door?
So that's really good. That's a really important thing. The condition of the house next door is probably not going to have an adverse effect on the appraisal, where it's most likely, and the appraiser is not going to make an adjustment for the house next door, typically, unless it's really, really, really incredibly terrible. Because the house next door could sell within a day. That could change. But typically where you run into issues with crazy houses next door is when it's involved with the marketability of the product. So that can drive down what your house sells for long before the appraiser gets there. So it's more typically involving the marketability of the house up front than it is the appraiser on the back end. I don't think that I ever, and I appraised for over 20 years, I don't think that I ever made an adjustment for a house next door, because that's not the house I'm appraising. I realize that it has an effect, but I believe that it worked itself out in the marketability factor of the product and most likely in the overall sales price. Did that help, Jeremy?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. So I'm going to get a glass, just a drink of water real quick. So now let's do the 2-minute drill. Appraiser's going to get to the house. Like I said, they're going to say something like, hey, my name's Scott. I need to measure around the outside of the house first. Then I'll come on inside. Perfect. I've opened up the gates for you, Scott. Make yourself at home. I'll be inside, just waiting for you. Appraiser comes to the front door. This is when the 2-minute drill begins. And it's going to go something like this. Hey, thank you so much for coming today. Come on in. Gosh, it's a beautiful day out there today. I love summertime. I've got a little bit of information I'd love to share with you about this house. I promise it won't take more than a couple minutes of your time. I've got it in here in the dining room. If you could please follow me, I'd appreciate it. And you're going to smile, wave your finger. You're going to be 6 feet. You're going to do your 6 feet COVID, but you're going to go like this and you're going to smile, wave your finger. And the appraiser's going to follow you because you don't look like you're going to hurt them, even though you're still wearing a mask, okay? You're smiling with your eyes. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick up a copy of the contract and you're going to hold it this way. The appraiser's mind and eyes are going to be immediately drawn to the bright thing you've written across the front of it. And you're going to say something like, here's a complete and full copy of the contract with all amendments and addendums. I know that you need that. And as you can see, our sales price is $400,000. They have now seen it. They've heard it. It's doubly reinforced the number they're shooting for. Here's a copy of our listing brochure. It's got all the pretty pictures and bells and whistles about the house. Here's a list of everything that the homeowner has done to this house since they purchased it just over 5 years ago. You're going to love seeing the high quality of the remodel and the high quality of the materials used in this finish. It's just a beautiful home. I've included a sketch. I know that you're going to sketch it out for yourself and measure it up. We had it sketched by an appraiser because, county right here, the county records, it's showing it 2,110 square feet. We just felt the house felt larger. So we had it measured and the house measured at 2,562 square feet. So considerably larger than county records. Here's the assessor records. Here's our listing history. As you can see, our house was only on the market for 3 days. During that 3-day period of time, we did have 12 offers. We did not choose the highest offer. We chose what we felt was the best offer. I've included the other 11 offers in their entirety right back here. I did redact all the personal information, but I wanted you to see the strong market reaction to our product. Here's the 1004MC. For this neighborhood. And the reason that I'm giving this to you is I know what I'm going to tell you right now is going to freak you out. I know it, because you like all your comps within the last 6 months. But to be very honest, my best comp sold 10 months ago. And my best comp is this one right here with the green star. This is my best comp. And if you apply the proper appreciation rate, this one easily supports my sales price, as do these others here with the green star. Now, I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but when I saw what it sold for, I'm not gonna lie, I freaked out. It's right down the street. And it sold it just closed like 2 weeks ago. It closed after we were already listed. And when I saw what it sold for, I immediately called the listing agent. And thank goodness I did, because I guess there was an issue. They had a kitty issue. She told me exactly that there were too many kitties living in this house. I guess it smelled something fierce. So make sure you call that listing agent up and ask about the kitty issue. And when you are done, You're going to say, thank you so much for listening to me. I'm not going to bother you anymore. And you're going to turn that appraiser loose. You're going to quietly sit down and turn them loose. You've already said everything that needs to be said to this point. Let them go through their house at their own pace, okay? Now, before the appraiser leaves, though, I need you to ask them a very important question. I've got my mouse, the arrow going over this right here. I want you to memorize this question. I wrote it this way for a whole host of reasons. It's very specific verbiage. I want you to memorize this. So before the appraiser leaves, you're going to get your COVID 6 feet away. You're going to say, hey, I do have one more question to ask you. Would you please give me the same consideration that VA appraisers are required to give? And would you please call and invoke Tidewater with the bank or the mortgage company if you find you are not able to reach the sales price? I want you to ask it exactly that way. So first off, what is invoking Tidewater? The VA came out with this rule called Invoking Tidewater in 2002, and I absolutely love it. I just love it. I think it's a great rule. I wish it was required on every appraisal. But the VA has said to their appraisers, if you are unable to reach sales price, you are required to call the bank or the mortgage company, and you are required to call and say, I am invoking Tidewater. And then the appraiser hangs up the phone. When the appraiser invokes Tidewater, the appraiser is giving all parties to that transaction 48 hours to send in any support they have for the sales price. Because when they call and invoke Tidewater, what they're saying is, I'm not able to get there with what I've got. Y'all better get me some more. Okay? The VA appraiser is required to do this. FHA and conventional appraisers are not required to invoke Tidewater, but they can, but you have to ask for it. Now, a VA appraiser can't break a rule or they'll lose their license. So if they call and invoke Tidewater, that's not breaking any Dodd-Frank rules. They can't tell you the value it's coming in at. They can't tell you the comps they're using. All they're saying is, I'm invoking Tidewater, and y'all have 48 hours to send me support. So an FHA and conventional appraiser can also do this. You have to ask for it, though, to make it happen. Do they have to do it? Nope, not FHA or conventional. They do not have to do it, even if you ask for it. But if you've been helpful, you've provided information that's actually been relevant. You've opened up the gates. You've given me some good comps. And you ask this question of me, the likelihood of it happening goes to over 90%. But you have to ask for it. Personally, I hope this happens, and I mean it. I personally hope that when you ask this of an FHA or conventional appraiser, they look at you and say, what? You want me to do what? I have no idea what you're talking about. Invoke Tidewater? What are you talking about? How cool would that be to be able to say to an appraiser, oh, I was just in this appraisal class and they talked about it. You see, the VA appraisers are required to call and say, I am invoking Tidewater if they're unable to reach the sales price before they turn in their appraisal. I know you can't say what the appraisal is coming in at. You can't give any information on the comps. You can't give any information at all. All you're doing is calling and saying, I'm invoking Tidewater, gives everyone 48 hours to send in support. If you don't hear anything in 48 hours, then you can turn in that appraisal low. Would you give me that same consideration? Please, please, pretty please. How cool would that be to be able to explain that to an FHA or conventional appraiser? That'd be pretty cool. So let's talk about if Tidewater gets invoked. The first thing I want you to say is thank you if you hear about Tidewater getting invoked. Here are the 3 phone calls that I want you to make if Tidewater is invoked. First phone call, it's going to go to the mortgage company. The mortgage company is going to call the listing agent. They're going to say, hey, just got an appraisal in. Appraiser invoked Tidewater. Send me what you got. You make 3 phone calls, listing agent. First phone call is a call to the agent representing the buyer. And you're going to say, hey, I I'm not sure if you've gotten the call yet from the mortgage company, but the appraiser on our listing just called and invoked Tidewater. And oh, no, I'm not surprised you don't know what that means. You haven't understood one thing in this entire transaction, but we'll talk about that later. But what it means is the appraisal's coming in low. And I also know that I've got this really nice appraisal gap coverage in this contract. But I'm still going to see if there's anything else I can do to help this appraiser get this thing to appraise. So why don't you get busy on getting to work on that too? So you're getting the other agent working on the comps. Second phone call. It's a call to all the agents that you work with that you know, like, and trust. You're going to call them and you're going to say, I need your help. I've got this on my listing over on Oneida Street. The appraiser just called to invoke Tidewater. These are the comps I used. This is the narrative I tried to provide and it's not working. What comps would you have used? Do you know of any for sale by owners or any pocket listings I might have missed? Get your real estate agent friends working with you. Third phone call. Sonia, I can't take a call. Please, I promise I will get you Sonia Jackson's iPhone raised a hand and I can't see it. So I'm sorry, it just popped up. So the third phone call is a call to your homeowner. And you're going to say to your homeowner, hey, I know we have this great appraisal gap coverage in there where they said they'll cover 100% of the appraisal gap. But that's only as honorable as they are. And so right now the appraisal isn't coming in sales price. And I'm still gonna do everything I can. I'm putting together as much information. I'm gonna send it over. Still hopeful that we can get this house to appraise for sales price. But if we can't, and if all of a sudden the other side starts vacillating, I need you to have a conversation with your spouse, your significant other, about what you must take from the sale of this transaction. Because tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, I'm going to call you and I'm going to ask, what is the number I have to fight tooth and nail if it comes down to it to get for you on this transaction? It gives you the time to have that conversation. Do you know what invoking Tidewater is about? It's not about getting the appraised value higher, really. It's not. It's about giving you time to have conversations with all parties because time allows you to do your job, which is to keep this transaction moving towards closing. Invoking Tidewater is basically saying this to everybody. Hey, everyone out there. Hey, look up here. Eyes on me. Look at your screen. We're walking towards closing, people. Because what happens if your deal comes in low and somebody starts to vacillate, or maybe you don't have a full appraisal gap, whatever the case may be, and you're working on a reconsideration of value after the fact? What are you doing? You're chasing after a speeding train, trying to get in front of it, slow it down, do your comps. And remember, you only have less than a 10% chance of getting that value raised. So this gives you the opportunity to get in front of that and hopefully get as much value before it gets turned in as you can. Because value changes after they've been turned in are tough. So that's why invoking Tidewater is so incredibly important. All right, I promise I'll answer all your questions. I'm here for you guys, okay? Just going on to the next page. Oh no, I stopped sharing. I gotta go back to share my screen because we're not done. And now it's gone. Oh, because I closed the window. I don't know what to do.
Did your share screen stay?
Yeah, it's the thing that I had opened was gone. So we're gonna just get out of it. I can do the last piece by myself. It's okay. I'm just going back to Hollywood Squares. This way I can see everybody anyway. All right. Hi. All right. So we've talked about the importance of invoking Tidewater. We're going to wrap up this class, and then I'm here to answer all your questions. The last one, when you see this, when you get it, it's going to say at the top, UCDP. Everyone write down, UC, Unicorn, Charlie, Delta, Party, UCDP. This is what the UCDP stands for. It stands for the Uniform Collateral Data Portal. I want you all to write down Uniform Collateral Data Portal. The Uniform Collateral Data Portal started to be built up by Fannie Mae and the government, I'd say approximately 12 to 13 years ago. And it's my belief that the government has built this portal to try to prevent another housing bubble from forming and busting in an area. Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. The Uniform Collateral Data Portal was rolled out in 2 phases. The first phase was called the UAD. And the UAD stands for the Uniform Appraisal Dataset. The Uniform Appraisal Dataset. Now, what the UAD did was, for all of you who have been in the business for more than 10 years or so, you were no longer able to read an appraisal. Because for those of you who've been in business for a while, what the appraisals used to say for condition was fair, average, good, excellent. And now it says C1, C2, C3 for appraisal quality, for condition ratings, right? That was the UAD. The UAD, what it did is it made all appraisals uniformly written so that all appraisers were using the same terminology in their appraisal reports. What happens when you can make something uniformly written? What can you do? You can data mine it. Hence, the second phase of the rollout, which is called Collateral Underwriter, also known as CU. CU, like the school in Boulder, Colorado. CU, which is taking a large amount of my income right now for my daughter who's in college. So if you have any clients that are moving to Colorado, you're going to remember me and tell them to use me for their loan, please, so I can pay this tuition. All right. So CU stands for Collateral Underwriter. I love Lisa. She's on it. Boo on CU. Boo on that tuition at CU. All right. What did Collateral Underwriter do? So here's what happened. Now, every appraisal that is uploaded to the portal comes in, uploads to the portal. It's checked for conformity with the UAD guidelines. Did they use the right terminology? If they did not, the portal rejects the appraisal. They send it back to the appraiser and say, you didn't use the proper terminology, redo this, please. Once it's been accepted, it's been data mined. And all of this information is flowed into this thing called Collateral Underwriter. Now, every appraisal that's been done for lending purposes for the last 8+ years has been data mined by Collateral Underwriter. Collateral Underwriter now does 2 things with every appraisal. The first thing is that it says, yeah, it's acceptable or not, and it data mines it. And then the second thing is it issues a score of 1 to 5 on every appraisal. Score of 1 means this: there is a low risk associated with this appraisal. Score of 1 is 2. Low risk associated with this appraisal. A score of 3 means that there is a moderate risk associated with this appraisal. This appraisal might not be worth what the appraiser is saying it is. That's a score of 3. Might not be. Might not be. And a score of 4 to 5 means that there is a high risk associated with this appraisal. Score of 4 to 5 means this: this house most likely is not worth what the appraiser is saying it is. So Collateral Underwriter is issuing a value opinion on that property. The other thing that Collateral Underwriter will do is it will identify up to 20 additional sales that have recently occurred around that property. And it will say to the appraiser, hey, why didn't you use these other 20 sales that are in this neighborhood? It doesn't know that that sale back to a busy street. It doesn't know that that house had too many kitties living in it. All it knows is the house sold for a lot less. Remember when Terry asked about just not providing the bad comps? You're providing all the bad comps because Collateral Underwriter knows all about the bad comps. And if the appraiser can get in front of it and say, these other comps were used, but were not included because this went back to a busy street. This one had 30 cats living in it. They can get in front of it. And then, as kind of a way to enforce all this super duper fun, the government has come out with its first ever blacklist of appraisers. They're using, I love Elizabeth Turner's, she has this shocked face. Love it. Thank you. They came out with their first ever blacklist of appraisers. They're using the portal to identify appraisers who consistently turn in high risk reports of 4 or 5. And they're threatening them with blacklisting them because they believe that they're contributing to the formation of a housing bubble that could burst. Very good friend of mine, you get a warning shot. They do give a shot across your bow, they give you a shot. This was many years ago. A good friend of mine got a warning and he called me up, and he works actually up in Boulder. He's a great appraiser up in Boulder. He called me up and he said, Scott, to be very honest, I didn't know who else to turn to or that I could trust. And I just got this big nastygram, and it says that I've been, my average score is this. And basically, I'm freaking out. And so I helped him formulate a great response where we fought every single thing that they said about him because he's a great appraiser. He just happened to be appraising in Boulder the year that Google came to town with a 2,000 plus campus, and their values went up over 30% in 1 year, and the government didn't like that. As you think about the market we're in right now, with values going up 1-2% a month, it's scary out there right now, right? This could be one of the reasons why so many appraisals are coming in low, because the appraisers out there know government's watching. As my buddy said to me, he said, and he started to cry when he said this, he said, Scott, what am I going to do? I have only appraised. This is the only job I've known for 30 years. If they blacklist me, Scott, it'll kill my family. We'll lose the house. And he's crying in the phone. Collateral Underwriter is no joke, and it's out there. And you guys are seeing all the craziness. This is why so many appraisals are coming in low. We have to be there. We have to be supporting our appraisers. We have to be providing them with as much information as we can. We have to be helping them as a group because it's tough out there. So that's why when I tell you to do all that stuff, this is when I go back to the beginning and I say, this is why when I give you the list of all the things to do, I'm giving you that list of the appraisal package, and I'm telling you to put together a 2-minute drill, and I'm telling you to do all this stuff. I'm not telling you to do this to make your jobs harder. I'm telling you to do this because the appraisers need our help. So that's why I'm having you do all this work. I know how hard your job is. I go out on listing appointments with my agents. I put together appraisal packages. I do reconsiderations of value. I do every single part of your job with one exception. I don't write contracts and I don't negotiate them, but everything else, I got it down. So I get how hard your job is. And you're going to be doing all this extra work so your deals close, because what happens when your deals close? You get paid. And what's more important is if your deal doesn't close and you have to relist, yeah, you might get paid eventually. Or maybe the seller will just simply say, I can't go through this again. It's been crazy, or whatever can happen. But the people, the agents who get their deals to close on time, they're the ones that are successful, and they get more referrals, because that's how you get your businesses through referrals. Only happy past clients give strong referrals. Grumpy past clients, they don't give strong referrals. All right, so this is where I typically wrap up my presentation and I say something like, and everyone's standing, they're standing at this point and they're cheering loudly and they're clapping hysterically. They're like, oh my God, that was awesome. I'm kidding. But this is where I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you, Shelly, for clapping, I appreciate it. And I'm gonna turn on Hollywood Squares again so I can kind of see most everybody. I can see about at least 20 of you or so. And
what I've done now is I've allowed everyone to unmute themselves as you ask questions. So since we're to that part of it, I have opened up that possibility that you may unmute yourself and ask Scott the questions that you've been thinking about. Just please remute yourself when you're done.
Before we do that,
me.
Yay! Applause! I live for the, what is it? I live for the applause, applause, applause. Thank you, Lisa.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Elizabeth Turner.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi. I actually had this issue on a house we were buying recently, where it came in low value. And so a couple things I was told, and I'm curious on your thoughts. One was that they could not consider any closed properties, any properties that closed after the appraiser had been at the property. So, you know, a couple properties had closed between the time we even received the report and he was at the property, and
Perfect.
he said
So
he couldn't use those.
Let me talk about those, okay? Because this is what you can request, Elizabeth. And I actually, it's funny you brought this up because I actually just did this today. So this morning, I was working on a reconsideration of value, and two of the comps that the appraiser used as in their listing section, they were under contract. And I called the agents up and I asked, when are you scheduled to close? And they said, we've closed. I'm like, awesome. What did you, you know, and so, but they were still not sure. I didn't look them up in MLS. And so I said, what did you close for? One of them closed for like $35,000 above list price, and the other one closed for over $40,000 above list price, which easily supported my sales price then. So this is what I did is I wrote a note. I love Mike. Scott is the bomb. Love you, Mike. I'm sorry, I'm getting back to you, Elizabeth. I promise. I'm so, all right. So what you can do is you can request an appraisal update. You say, I would like to request an appraisal update. And what an appraisal update does is the appraiser goes back out to the property, makes sure that nothing has changed since they were originally there, and they can change the effective date of the appraisal to after the date that these properties closed, and therefore hopefully increase the sale price or the appraised value. So I just asked that from my appraisal department today to please, I would like to do a reconsideration of value. Here's the information that I believe is pertinent. And these two comparables are now closed. So I'd like the appraiser to go back out, do an appraisal update, change the effective date, and hopefully we should be able to appraise near sales price. Now, this is for a buyer that has full appraisal contingency. So what am I trying to do is just try to get him to not have to write as big of a check outside. I mean, he's still going to cover it, but I just would rather that he's not covering an appraisal gap and his money is going towards principal rather than an appraisal gap. All right. Did that help, Elizabeth?
That did help. And then the other thing we were just told is that from the lender that they usually don't work. That whole like reconsideration of value thing. But you've given a lot of good tips.
So hopefully, Elizabeth, Jeremy, my friends at RMLS will have me back because this is my first in a series of 3 classes. My second class is called How to Adjust Like an Appraiser, where we do a deep dive in the 1004MC and I teach you how appraisers come up with adjustment rates, you know, bedrooms, garages, location, that kind of stuff. And then my third class is called How to Analyze an Appraisal. And in that class, I teach agents how to read what an appraisal says. And because I believe that if an agent can read what an appraisal says, they can fight it when it's wrong. And I also give you some more tricks, like that trick that I told you that if the appraiser is marked that values are increasing, they're required to make that time adjustment on any comp older than 3 months. So I give you some other tricks like that that will hopefully empower you to be able to get a higher value via reconsideration of value. Okay.
Scott, I have a question that I think is important. This is Deirdre, Century 21 Cascade out of the Portland Metro.
Hi, Deirdre.
Hi. Hey, I've asked this question to multiple people in the industry and appraisers included. They're at the top of the list. Why, whenever there are 3 comps that are FSBOs, they are in direct competition with those properties listed in any MLS, why are Why are those that are used as comps, because they're given to appraisers because they get the sales price, you know, in the neighborhood from the local title company like we do out here? Why aren't those sale prices for those adjusted 6%, 5%, even as 4%? Because there's no realtor commission involved. And that totally affects, that is why 90% of those FSBOs, whether they be former realtors or former appraisers or whatever reason, that they list FSBO, and they totally affect our listings.
Yep. No, I believe, Deirdre, to be very honest, I believe that an adjustment should be made for the 5 or 6% or whatever your commission is that you guys get in Oregon. I don't know what it is in Portland. So I believe that a positive adjustment should be made. And this is, and I have done that in the past on a for sale by owner when there has not been a real estate commission paid. I will say whatever the commission is, and I would put a plus number next to that for that under the sales under the grid portion that talks about if there were any concessions paid. So I believe that agent's commission should be added back in. Here's the other, but I also get this question since we're kind of skating around it a little bit. I do want to talk about it. It's critically important for you as a real estate agent, especially if you farm a neighborhood, to have as much information about for sale by owners as you possibly can. So I tell agents that I work with that farm neighborhoods that they should drive their neighborhood at least, totally drive their neighborhood up and down every single street, looking for sale by owner signs every 2 weeks.
Yes.
And if you see one, you call and you make an appointment to go see the house. And you say to the buyer, to the seller, you say, hey, I might have a buyer that is interested in your property. I'm not calling you to try to get the listing. I'm not even going to bring it up. But if I could please get into your house just for 5 minutes, because my homeowner works all the time and they don't want to take time off unless your house meets certain specifications for them. And because it's a for sale by owner and it's not an MLS, I don't see pictures. I'm not sure what. If I could just get in for 5 minutes and take a peek, you go through that house with a clipboard and you write down intricate notes about what is there.
Yep.
Old kitchen, terrible carpet.
Yep.
All
Dated.
of these notes, so
Dated.
that you are meeting an appraiser in the neighborhood that you farm, or you're out on a listing appointment in the neighborhood that you farm. You can talk about these for sale by owners and you can them, and nobody else will have the data for them. They're so incredibly powerful, especially in farm neighborhoods.
Excellent advice. I've never done that. I really appreciate that. Okay.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your question. Who's next? Anyone else? We all good?
There was a question that came up earlier from Val in the chat. Can a loan broker simply move the loan to another lender and reorder another appraisal if all parties agree to this? I've had some pretty cranky appraisers who think they're going to stop this crazy appreciation, one appraisal at one time, and have said this out loud to me.
Yeah, I saw an appraisal just very recently where the appraiser wrote irrational exuberance when discussing the current market. And my response was, it's not the appraiser's job to figure out if there's irrational exuberance in the market. It's to appraise a property. And that's what I wrote back. I didn't like the term irrational exuberance. So on a conventional, you can change lenders and get a new conventional appraisal. But again, remember on FHAs, they stick. And because of this portal, this is important for all of you to know. The portal also tracks if an appraisal has recently been completed on that property. And it scores If the new appraisal comes in a lot higher, it will score that new appraisal with a big fat 5. And it'll say another appraisal has recently been completed on this property at a much lower value. Underwriter to verify value, which usually means that the underwriter is going to order a desk, a field, or a second appraisal to verify this value. If you run into that situation, for all of you to know, it's very important that you know this. If you catch wind that an underwriter is needing to do some sort of review that is outside of the company, some sort of external review, if you have a house that is highly updated and remodeled, please ask that they do at least a field review, if not a second appraisal. Because a field review gets somebody at least to drive by the subject and the comps, and a second appraisal gets somebody inside to see all the upgrades. A desk review could be done by somebody in Iowa in their pajamas, okay? So they typically don't turn out too good for you. So if you get word that the mortgage company or the bank is doing some sort of secondary review on the appraisal, it's probably because it got a big nasty 4 or 5 on the score. So they're verifying it. If you have something that's you've just been recently updated and remodeled throughout, beg them to do a second appraisal. Say, I'll meet them anytime. Get that appraiser in the house, because if they see it, touch it, and feel it, it becomes real. If they're just looking at it in pictures, it's a lot easier for them to discount that, all those upgrades. And it gives you the chance to do a 2-minute drill with them as well. Okay, Jeremy, some more questions, please.
Let's see. So just to answer Susan's question quickly, yes, this is being recorded and we'll share the link after the class when we send out the PowerPoint. Joanne would like to know what specific issues will you cover in your second or third classes? So Joanne, I mean, this was fantastic feedback from everybody. So we will definitely be having Scott back. Scott, do you have some more teasers that for some other classes that we might do with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I truly believe that this is a stepping stone, and I've had agents take this class 2, 3, 4, 5 times even. There's a lot of information that comes at you in this class. And Marty just held up his hand. How many times, Marty? Did you say 2? 3? He's taken it 3 times. And I've been told people learn something from it each time. And the next class, the how to adjust, takes kind of what we learned here with that appreciation rate, and we kind of do a bigger, deeper dive. And it's kind of like this class on steroids to a certain point. And I talk about all these uses for the 1004. We get pretty specific and we start talking about adjustment rates for garages and bedrooms and views and location, and how I talk about this strongest rule in all of appraising and what it means to various things. We discuss what is gross living area and how do you determine it. We talk about how to value an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU. Can it be included in gross living area or not? I mean, there are so many things that real estate agents are taught that appraisers and agents look at completely different. And the more that you can think of valuing a property like an appraiser does, the more powerful you're going to be as a real estate agent in positive ways. It's going to help you get more listing appointments because you're going to be pricing by making adjustments in front of the agents rather than running a CMA. Agents I work with do not use CMAs.
Just go over. I hate emailing.
That's okay. Thank you. So Jeremy's going to mute.
Once, where is she? Popping around. Sorry, my.
Isn't Zoom fun, you guys?
There we go.
Okay, so I'm going to do my next class when we all get to be together. Okay, I'm going to fly out there. We're going to like hold hands and touch and do all the things that are bad. So the second class is all about getting away from a CMA. When my agents are out on a listing appointment, they do not use a CMA. They use nothing that is auto-generated to come up with a value for where they're going to list this house at. Everything they do is in front of the homeowner. It's collaborative. Like I said, I go out on listing appointments all the time with agents. And this is meant to set you apart. So not only are you able to talk to appraisers and understand how they come up with these adjustments better, but my second class is also really about getting you more listings and the strength of it. and to be able to use the proper terminology. And then my third class, how to analyze an appraisal. Jeremy, that's my shortest class. When I would do the all-day classes for you guys, when I came out and did those across the state, and I did like 6 hours of continuing ed all in one day. And me for an entire day is a lot to deal with. So I felt sorry for these people. But that third class on how to analyze is all about teaching you tricks. It's all about tricks. And it's about giving you the knowledge in those tricks so that when you see them, you know how to fight it to help you get a higher value. So it's about understanding and then giving you the knowledge to help you grow your business. Okay, so that's kind of a good piece on that. What's the next question, Jeremy?
Curtis, what effect does moving a listing price to a pending sale price have as an effect to the appraiser, and is it against any rules at RMLS? So I'm guessing he's asking about the status to change from listing to pending. So I'll just quickly answer the RMLS part of it. The RMLS rule is anytime there's a change in status, it's a 24-hour rule. So 24 hours excluding holiday and weekend, it needs to be changed in status. So if you have an accepted offer, it's now pending. You have 24 hours to make that change.
Yep. And now as far as the appraisal, how I want all of you to look at pending sales is they are going to be used as support for where the market is heading. So if you have some pending sales that you want the appraiser to start to put more weight on, because you all are always working in the future, right? You're going this way, and the appraisers are pulling stuff from the past. So the pending sale is kind of the thing that tries to bring the two together a little bit. So if you have strong pending sales, I want you to call the listing agents on these pendings, and I want you to ask them a series of questions. I want you to ask them exactly like I did. When are you scheduled to close? When are you scheduled to close? Have you appraised? Have you met all loan condition deadlines? The more, ask them straight up, what are you under contract for? And a lot of times you're going to get, oh, I can't tell you, that's against the rules. Oh my gosh, you could turn me in or something, whatever. If they do that, then you play this game. All right, so you were listed at 500. Am I getting warm at 510? No. Am I getting warm at 520? I'm getting warmer. Awesome. Am I warmer still at 525? Yeah, you're pretty warm. Awesome, thank you. The more information you can get to write down on that comp about these pendings, the more real they become in the head of the appraiser, and the more weight they're willing to place on them. So pending sales can be very useful, especially in the market that we're in right now. Okay. Next question, Jeremy, please.
Does USDA loan have different guidelines?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's very similar to FHA. And so their guidelines, as far as, let me go at it this way. Let me back up a little bit. There are specific USDA guidelines. Absolutely, there are. However, they're going to be very similar to FHA. And FHA, conventional, and VA, as far as guidelines, are actually very, very similar. The only real major exception between FHA, VA, and conventional is when it comes to paint. Okay. So this is why they're all similar. After the Great Recession, the rules changed, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac basically came out and said, all right, we're not taking houses in quote unquote as is condition anymore. We're not doing it. So at a minimum, it has to, an appraisal must meet this criteria. A house must meet this criteria. It must not have any structural integrity issues or health and safety issues. Any structural integrity or health and safety issues must be addressed prior to close, regardless of loan type. Okay, so if you pull up to a listing appointment and your roof is shot and all of it's peeling up, it's all curling up, and your roof is shot, the first thing you're going to do is try to get a 3-year roofing cert. Call a roofer, and if you can get a 3-year roofing cert, you're good. Because the appraiser is going to say, either give me a cert or replace that roof. Okay. If you can't get the cert, you can't, it used to be, 15, 20 years ago, you'd write in MLS. No conventional offers will be considered, needs a new roof. Now it doesn't matter. FHA conventional, VA, USDA, they all say the same thing. That's a structural integrity issue. It's got to be addressed prior to close. So go ahead and install the new roof. Find a roofer that's willing to be paid for the roof after it closes. Figure out something if the seller can't afford to pay for the roof to be replaced. Figure it out, get the roof done, and get it priced into the new list price if you have to, but it's going to need to be replaced regardless. Where FHA, and I think USDA take it a step further, is with peeling paint. I know with FHA, I just not as sure on USDA because I don't have a lot of them in Denver. So with USDA or with FHA and peeling paint, it's not only the exterior of the house, it's also the interior as well as any structure on the lot. Bless you. Susan just sneezed. She knocked herself against the wall. You okay back there? All right.
No.
So with FHA, if there's a picket fence that's painted white and there's peeling paint on the fence, you have to scrape and pick up the paint chips and paint the fence. If there's a shed, the shed will need to be painted. If it was all built prior to 1978, because it has to do with the lead-based paint poisoning issue. Whereas the rest of people look at peeling paint, like around windows, peeling paint around the wood on the windows, they look at it as a structural integrity issue. You got to scrape the paint and paint it so that the wood doesn't get wet, because if the wood gets wet, it rots. So there isn't a large discrepancy or a large difference in loan programs anymore like there were 15 plus years ago. I hope that answered it a little bit. Okay. Jeremy, anything else, man?
Edda has a question. She has an upcoming VA appraisal on an older home with very few comps. Any suggestions?
Yeah, the way that I would go about that, Edda, is I believe that you look at homes in periods of time that they were built. Because I believe that the time that a home was built drives, for a large part, its marketability. I mean, there are certain variations on that, but I believe that that is the market for a home. So what I would be doing is I would be looking for older homes as my comparables, would be my first thing that I'd be looking for. And if you have to go outside of your neighborhood, so be it. But this is how I kind of look at homes as far as age. You have like 1880s to about 1940-ish is a block of homes. Then we get into the 1950s, 60s. That's when we got the mid-century modern design, the mid-mod. And that's the hottest product out there. Every millennial wants the mid-mod. If y'all want to see, if you want to check out somebody who's built an incredible business around mid-modern design, if you don't have anyone in your market that specializes in it, I'm giving you all a hint. There's like, how many? 121. One of you should do this, if not two. There's a guy here in Denver. His name is Peter Blank. And he owns a company. He started a company called Mile High Modern. And it is one of the most successful companies in the city. And it's all based off of the mid-mod design. He was the first to see the appeal for it. And he built this incredible company and this incredible real estate empire on this mid-mod design. So that mid-mod design is all its own thing. If you have that mid-mod, you only compare it to mid-mods because people will pay anything for those. And then we get into the 1970s. The 1970s, let's just be honest, they were just not a good look. There wasn't too much good coming from the 1970s. The 70s had box houses, no exterior fenestration. The 70s were kind of like, eh. Then we get into the 80s. What happened in the 80s? We got a vaulted foyer and a vaulted living room ceiling. Those were the only two rooms that were vaulted. Then what happened in the 90s? Everything's vaulted. Everything's vaulted. Now in the 2000s, what do we have? We have high flat ceilings. Each one of those products in the way that they were built, even the walls, even the amount or not use of walls is its own driving marketing factor. I often say my house was built in 1902 and I have walls and doors. And my friends that live in this new open concept where everything's open, I'm like, how do you live there with your children? you know, I want walls and doors that I can close because I must not like my kids as much as you do. I don't need to see them as much as you do. So each one of those is a marketing influence. So I'd stay older, and I try to stay within a 10 to not more than a 20% difference in gross living area. So try to stay within a 10, not more than 20% high or low difference in gross living area. That's where I would start. Okay.
All right, Sylvia would like to know, as a buyer's agent, I got told by a mortgage broker that the appraisal came in low, nothing else. The mortgage broker wouldn't share why or a copy of the report. Can I see a copy of the report so I can ask for a reconsideration of value? All I ever get told was day of inspection and it came in low.
Okay, so here are the rules regarding a mortgage broker like me sending out an appraisal. I can send it to one person, and I'm required by law to do it. I'm required by law to send a copy of the appraisal to the buyer. I cannot release a copy of the appraisal to anyone else. All right. So if you're the buyer's agent and you're told that the appraisal came in low, you reach out to your buyer and you say, send me a copy ASAP. And then you send it to the listing agent. So the listing agent has it too. And the two of you get to work on a reconsideration of value. But the lender can only send it to one person, and that is the buyer. Okay.
Excellent. Carrie, how do you value an amazing view? No appraiser can ever answer this for me.
We can't end on this question because this is something I talk about in my How to Adjust class. There are two adjustments that I believe are pull it out of thin air. Sometimes I say pull it out of someplace else when I'm in person, but pull it out of thin air adjustment. And they are for condition and view because they are in the eye of the beholder. So a view adjustment could be the entire value of the home. It truly could be $1 million view. That could be the reason why your house is selling, is because of the view. I can tell you this, and this also goes back to my How to Adjust class, but I'll give you guys this since you guys have hung in there, is that here's the strongest rule in all of appraising. So you can write this down. The strongest rule in all of appraising says this: no single line item adjustment, no single line item adjustment should exceed 10% of the value of the house. No single line item adjustment should exceed 10% of the value of the house. So where I tell people to start, it's not, just start here, is if your home is going to be worth around $500,000, typically the most you're going to see as an adjustment on a comparable is $50,000 because of that rule. Because if the appraiser violates the 10% rule, their chance of receiving a score of 4 or 5 goes up considerably. So I actually have stories where I discuss views and various things in that class. It really is probably the hardest adjustment to come up with any semblance. I also tell agents in the class that if you do have an incredible view, that when you're looking at comps, I want you to find the comps that say great view of, and use those as your comps. And I teach you how to go outside of the neighborhood and doing things like that using the tenant form C. But I think that is a great view is the marketing factor on many homes. And that's the marketing factor is what drives your value. So it's one of those where I can't say 10 grand or 10%. I can just say that rule, and that's my fallback for various things like that. Okay. Next question, Jeremy.
Let's see, Jana is asking that 1004 form, if we don't have Paragon, is there an equivalent? Jana, yeah, so the Paragon report that is available is just the data is pulled and it's formatted in that chart. So when we send out the follow-up with the link and everything, I'll include the instructions on when you do a search in RMLS web, how you can export that data and then format it to show that information.
Thank you. Next question.
And look, except for Emily is just clarifying that adjustments above 10% are allowed. They just must be addressed and explained in the report. And I think that was what, Scott, you were saying that, you know, the 10% rule, that's more of a personal practice rule, that it's the recommendation.
Exactly. It is a guideline from Fannie, Freddie, FHA, and VA. And so it is, I believe it's the strongest rule, but it is something that can change. You know, they can go above that, but they will have to have some pretty strong, you know, explanation for that.
And then I think that answered all the questions in the chat.
Shelly, I see Shelly's got her hand up. Hold on, Shelly. Go ahead, Shelly.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So when you're presenting to the appraiser, do you stack all the green comps before the red comps?
Yes, I do. That's a great question, actually. It really is. I want you to go through the green first. I really do. And then I want you to go over the bad ones and explain why they're bad. But I do want it stacked exactly in that order. As you get more proficient at this, Shelly, this is how I want you to start, you know, like this, just like this across the table, because it's going to be easier for you to kind of stay on track about what you're doing. As you progress though, now when my agents meet the appraiser, Shelly, they actually take all of the appraisal package, they take it to Staples or Office Depot, and they have it bound in a hardcover book. And on the cover, it says, this information is being provided to, and it has the appraiser's name, for the appraisal of the property located at, with the address, on today's date.